information to share with you all today. Wonderful, thank you. So yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Lindsay Lambert. I'm one of the student recruitment officers here at the University of Manitoba. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your evening with me and a couple of my colleagues just to learn a little bit more about the City of Winnipeg, University of Manitoba, and everything in between. Vernon, I'll get you to go on the next slide there if you don't mind. Just for kind of a brief introduction about kind of who we are and what our roles are here at the University of Manitoba. As mentioned earlier, my name is Lindsay. I'm one of the student recruitment officers here, and my primary responsibilities are centered more around domestic recruitment in Canada and in South Asia. So hopefully there's a few of you in here that have some questions that are from some of those more larger countries that I tend to work alongside with quite closely. And then on the next slide here, I'll also introduce my colleague who, as she mentioned earlier, she has returned from maternity leave. This is Verna Craker. She is going to be focusing more on our kind of larger agents here. So you maybe might find yourself working alongside her as well throughout the years. So thank you all for sharing a little bit of your time today with us. And as mentioned earlier too, our third colleague is also here today, Sajitra, who will be helping kind of field some questions that you might have during the presentation. Next slide, please. So for any of you that are really completely new to the University of Manitoba, these kind of first few slides are going to be showing you a bit of an introduction to kind of where we are, what we're like, and everything kind of that follows suit with that. All three of us actually live in Winnipeg. I'm born and raised in Winnipeg myself. I have a really soft spot for the city of Winnipeg, and honestly, I will probably never leave. So I'm excited to kind of start off this presentation, kind of gush about the city a little bit with you all today. Winnipeg is home to about 100,000 people right now. So we are less than 1 million individuals. So we're not nearly as large as some of the larger metro cities that some of you might be familiar with, such as Vancouver and Toronto. But that's not to say that Winnipeg doesn't have all of its great kind of unique features that make it so special, and also just a really popular choice for everyone to kind of choose as their home, but also for international students to choose to live and study within. As you can see on the map here, we're about an hour and a half north from the United States border. And then with regards to some of those larger cities that I mentioned earlier, including Vancouver and Toronto, we're about 75 minutes in a flight in either direction from those cities too. Next slide, please. So this quick 1.5 minute video kind of shows you the secrets of Winnipeg. It's no real secret, it's just how wonderful it is. So please enjoy the video here. I just really love that video so much. Now that things are slowly starting to open back up, we can start seeing a lot of these different festivals and kind of social gatherings come back into action. So just for a few more facts and figures about Winnipeg before we jump into the University of Manitoba here. Earlier this year in 2021, Winnipeg was named one of Canada's best communities by one of our online papers, Maclean's. And when they looked at the criteria to actually look at what kind of made these best communities the best, is we looked at a range of different areas, including safety, affordability, overall happiness, and networking possibilities, and overall just support from our parties and our governments, and making sure that our citizens are actually content with what they have in the city. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I will probably never leave Winnipeg. I'm just a big fan of it, and everything that kind of comes with it has always been really quite exceptional in my mind. So it's just kind of one example. And along with that too, for any of you that are really interested in just having more space to enjoy outdoors, so whether you are into greenery or spaces, or even just being a little bit more active, Winnipeg is a great example of a city that is not a concrete jungle. So if you are, if walking and cycling and just being outdoors is important to you, right now in Winnipeg, we have over 1,300 different urban parks. And I want to believe that we are slowly becoming a bike safe city. So right now we have over 400 kilometers of walking and bicycle paths. So if those activities are important to you, just something to keep in mind of. Next slide, please. And then probably one of the most kind of the best features about Winnipeg that I hear from students, parents, agents, even just friends who have moved to Winnipeg, is that Winnipeg is extremely affordable. Winnipeg is one of the most cost competitive cities right now within the US and Western Canada. So this is just a really great reminder for students that are looking to choose Winnipeg for, either to study or to live or to work in, that you don't have to worry about putting all of your money into just your living costs, that you can still have your full lifestyle of what you enjoy doing. Oftentimes, the example that we share that you can see on the slide here is average rent for a one-bedroom apartment. Now, I like this example because I actually had this example myself prior to being able to buy a home in the city of Winnipeg a few years back. So average rent for a one-bedroom apartment, as you can see, is considerably lower in Winnipeg when compared to Toronto, Vancouver, and Ottawa. So again, if saving money is important to you and you're looking for still a cost of an affordable place to live and work and kind of learn as well, but still be able to, put money away for your future and focus on everything else that matters, Winnipeg really is a great option with that regard. Next slide, please. Now, along with that too, one area that I know a lot of students are really interested in is especially engineering, computer science, and one kind of area two areas, I guess I should really say, that is kind of a great highlight for these students to be aware of, is that in Winnipeg, we have the largest aerospace center in Western Canada that's part of Boeing. So for students, again, that are interested in going into engineering, more specifically our mechanical engineering program that has a specialization in aerospace, this is just a great kind of fact to keep in the back of your pocket. Perhaps down the road, if you're interested in studying that particular program, maybe wanting to participate in a co-ops or work placement, and then maybe finding yourself working at the center post-graduation, which happens quite a bit with our grads. Another area too that we are really proud and always excited to see the growth of is the kind of tech industry in Winnipeg. In 2021, we had a 95.5% employment rate in this industry, which is pretty phenomenal, especially for our size. We are seeing a lot of companies starting their kind of additional offices in Winnipeg, bringing their sister companies into the downtown center. And Winnipeg being such a central hub makes this a great option for these businesses. And we're really excited to continue seeing this growth, especially with the interest in computer science for our students. Next slide, please. And then Winnipeg is also home, as that video shared earlier, with over 100 different ethnic groups and speaking over 100 different languages too. So I know that's definitely one of my favorite parts about being in Winnipeg, is that it is extremely multicultural. I know I didn't mention this earlier in the presentation. One festival we always really like to kind of gush about a little bit is during our summer months. There's a festival called Folklorama, and it's a 2-week-long multicultural festival. It's actually the largest multicultural festival in the world, and it just goes to really highlight the fact that Winnipeg is home to all different nationalities, all different folks that come from beautiful backgrounds with different arts, culture, dance, and song. And it's an opportunity for us to really kind of show our appreciation for those different backgrounds. So again, we always welcome folks from all over the place, and hopefully see them call Winnipeg home. Now, on that topic too, Winnipeg also has a long-term residence program called the Provincial Nominee Program, which some of you are probably familiar with. So for any of you that are interested in kind of pursuing the pathway of permanent residency in Manitoba, our pathway is a little bit faster when compared to other provinces in Canada. Typically, provinces will require students to graduate from a post-secondary institution, work on a postgraduate work visa for 1 year, and then they can start that pathway. In Manitoba, though, we've actually cut it. It's a little bit faster. Depending on the program that the students graduate with, they can either graduate and apply right into the PNP program, or they need to work a minimum of 6 months, and then they can start that pathway program. So if achieving permanent residency is something of a high value for you, just knowing that Manitoba does have a bit of a faster timeline for you is something to keep in mind of. Next slide, please. Okay, next up, we will kind of talk into our campus at the University of Manitoba. Verna, can you remind me, are you jumping in here, or did you want me to keep going here?
No, I'm jumping in at programs.
Perfect, thank you. So at the University of Manitoba, one fact I always really like to kind of highlight first is that we are the oldest university in Western Canada, established back in 1877. The reason I like highlighting that is just it gives students an idea of what they can expect to see on campus. So the top right photo that you can see here already shows you a really nice mix. Again, these are only 2 buildings that you can see. Our campus is quite large. We'll show an aerial view shortly. But because we do have over a century of history and buildings, students can expect to see a really beautiful mix of red brick, historical, kind of Victorian style buildings, besides some of our newer abstract modern type facilities that have been brought forward over the last few decades to really to accommodate for our incoming students. Now, on the topic of students, this year we also hit a new milestone. In September of 2021, the University of Manitoba welcomed over 31,000 students. So we did welcome our largest number of students in history. So we were really excited about that. And once Verna kind of starts the presentation too, in a few slides, she's going to be going over some of these programs, but we also have over 100 accredited and internationally recognized programs for students to review. Next slide, please. Now for the aerial photo that I just mentioned previously, this is going to be kind of a decent overview of our Fort Garry campus. Now this is about 2/3 of our campus, and this is the primary campus that we do have for students. So if you've never been to Winnipeg, which I anticipate most of you haven't, this campus is located about 15 minutes south of the city center in Winnipeg. For folks that live in Winnipeg, we kind of call this campus a city within a city because most of our students do study on this campus. It is very large. This is only about 2/3 of the campus here. And, pre-COVID and hopefully after COVID as well, we'll be back to really having a buzzing campus full of different events, full of students, full of inspiration and research and different opportunities for students to really engage in. A couple things I always really like to note about the specific photo, though, is that for students that are looking at being on a campus that they don't necessarily have to commute to, there are 6 different residence facilities available for students, all located on this campus directly. So students can literally roll out of bed and go right to class. And then another thing too is that for our first year students that study at the UM, in the middle of the photo here, you can see our administration building with the red top. Typically, our first year students will find themselves studying just around that building. So even though campus is quite large, you don't have to worry about being too far away. And you don't need to be running across campus to get to your classes. Next photo, please. Now, on top of that too, the UM is part of the U15. So for any of you that are not familiar with that term, this just means that the University of Manitoba is part of Canada's top 15 research intensive universities. One thing I always really like to introduce to students as well is just highlighting the fact that for research and for students to be part of research, you can actually start as early as your first year. Research doesn't only have to be available for students that are in science-specific programs or even students that are going into graduate studies. We really have it available in almost every program. So I do always encourage students to connect with your professors once you are comfortable on campus and you're ready to be a little bit more engaged. It's just a really great opportunity to truly see what the university is all involved with. And on that topic, we are also a world leader in a range of different areas, including climate change, functional foods, and infectious diseases. So our campus continues to stay very busy, both locally, nationally, and internationally, with a range of different kind of research initiatives. Next slide, please. Now at the UM as well, we also have a range of different work integrated learning opportunities available for our students. So some of those would include our co-op programs, our internships, research, as I mentioned, work practicums, clinicals for any specific healthcare specific programs, and even volunteer opportunities as well. Verna will be going over a little bit more information about our co-ops, but we do always really like to highlight the fact that because it's such a huge area for our students to really focus on, right now, over 40 of our programs offer co-ops for students. Typically, you know what, I'll let Verna talk more about it, but typically it happens in the students' later years of their degree. But some of these placements, just to kind of quickly highlight them, oftentimes do include Fortune 500 companies, startups, different agencies, both locally and internationally. So just letting the students know that those opportunities are available for them. Next slide, please.
I'm so sorry. Can everybody mute yourselves? It's really disturbing for the presenter. Thank you so much. Sajida, can you please mute yourself?
Okay, I'll keep going. So as I mentioned earlier, there are 6 on-campus residence buildings available for students as well. Typically, we see the applications go live in the month of November for the upcoming September term. I anticipate them going live in the new year. So for any of you that are interested in applying for the September term, please continue staying patient and just staying in touch with us directly for those updates. And then for any of you that might be interested in actually living with a Canadian family in our home state program, we also have those opportunities available for students too. We hope to see it return in September 2022 as well, but please stay close to the website and stay close to us for all updates. Next slide, please. And then on top of that too, I always really like to highlight to students about the range of different areas that we have available for them. So whether the involvement is looking at student clubs, student organizations, volunteer and leadership programs, there is close to about 250 different areas for students to really kind of engage themselves within. So again, I always recommend to students starting as early as your first year, maybe connecting with different faculty groups that you could be a part of, or our student union to see what's available for you. But rest assured, no matter what you're interested in or whether you're wanting to just improve a specific skill, those opportunities are certainly available for you. Next slide. And then the Active Living Center is also home on the Fort Garry campus. So again, this specific campus is where the majority of our students will find themselves studying. The Active Living Center is a 1 million plus square foot both workout and research facility for students to take advantage of. I'm very biased. It's my favorite facility on campus. So for any of you that are interested in health, fitness, and wellness, or you're just looking for a quick study break, feel free to use the gymnasiums, the kind of workout machine areas, the pool, the hockey rink, whatever you're interested in. There's a range of different spaces available for students to use throughout their academic year. Next page, please. And then one other kind of area that I will highlight as well is for any of you that are really interested in pursuing even further study abroad programs, we have 2 different areas that we oftentimes kind of encourage students to consider looking into. So this would include our community engaged learning programs and also our study abroad programs. So for the community engaged learning programs, these ones are typically a little bit shorter in duration. They typically run for about 2 to 4 weeks. And these students would find themselves either going up to northern Manitoba or to Central America for a leadership and volunteer initiative opportunity. So if you're looking for that experience to maybe help kind of collaborate with a group of students in a different environment with a different community and just look at kind of enhancing those skills, it's just a great opportunity for you to consider. Or if any of you, even though you're already an international student, if you're interested in going to study in a different country for an additional term or 2 terms, you can also consider doing that with, right now we work with about 135 different universities in 35 different countries. So again, something to consider. It can become available as soon as your 2nd year of studies, and our International Center does a great job with assisting these students. Next slide, please. Okay, so next up, I will hand it over to Verna to kind of finish off the second half of the presentation. So Verna, it's all you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about our academic programs. As Lindsay mentioned, we have a lot of them. So we offer over 100 different internationally recognized programs of study. The ways that students can enter these programs is one of two ways. So we have direct entry programs as well as advanced entry programs. So a direct entry program means basically the student is applying directly from high school, whereas an advanced entry program usually requires about 24 credit hours or more of university studies. So some programs that I'll be talking about today might be labeled as advanced entry. And so if you have a student who is, you know, a high school student, they wouldn't be able to apply to those programs. And we'll kind of talk about how to get to those programs moving forward. So these are all the programs that we have at the University of Manitoba, quite a lot, all these different areas. You'll notice two things on this slide. So one is that some of these areas of study are bolded. Those particular areas of study do offer cooperative education, so co-op. Basically, a student would be able to apply for that as early as second year of university. And it's not something they have to do as a part of their degree, but it is something that's optional to them. And I would say highly encouraged, just because students are more likely to get a job in their particular field right after university if they have some of that hands-on learning education. It does usually extend the student's degree by maybe a term or two, yeah, often a year. So just something to keep in mind with your visas and all of that. You'll also notice that there is a maple leaf beside some of these programs as well. So most of our health sciences programs actually are only open to permanent residents and Canadian citizens. So if you were looking at that as an international student, unfortunately, those particular areas that have the maple leaf beside them would not be eligible to international students. However, if you were to get your, let's say, permanent residency, then of course you would be able to apply into those programs. So I wanted to touch on kind of some of these different areas of study. So and kind of dive into them a little bit more. So we've kind of, our first grouping here is more so for the student who's maybe a little bit more creative and likes to work with their hands. So as you can see in the video, hopefully, you can see all of the different ways that students can get a hands-on experience even within a university setting. So we actually have a unique program called architecture or environmental design. It's actually one of the only programs in Canada at the undergraduate level to offer architecture. So the UM is really great in that way. Students can study anything from architecture, interior design, landscape, and urbanism. So lots of different areas of study. We also have our School of Art. So for students who are maybe looking at more of your traditional fine arts, things like sculpture, drawing, things like that, we also offer an amazing School of Art for that too. Then we have our music faculty. So if students are interested in music, of course, we have a lot of options there, like jazz studies, composition, lots of different areas to take a look at. Then these are some of more of our STEM programs, if you will. So if you're interested in things like technology, engineering, sciences, these are maybe more options for yourselves to consider. Agriculture, of course, one thing that's important to know is everybody needs to eat, right, in the world. So agriculture is actually a really great thing to study, especially at our university. We actually started out as an agricultural college back in 1877. So it's a great area. We also have a 95% success rate for this particular program, going and finding work right out of university. So that's always great. I know a lot of students come to ask me, which particular area can I go study in and then get a job after? So that's one I definitely recommend. Also, we have a great engineering program. So for students who are looking at civil, mechanical, electrical, we have some options in aerospace engineering as well. We also do have environment, earth, and resources. So if students are interested in studying environmental studies, environmental sciences, lots of different things there. We do actually have the world leaders in climate change research, so a great program for sure. Then if you're not familiar, kinesiology is actually the study of movement. And then we have recreation management as well. So this is kind of an area, if you're interested in learning more about mobility, working within your community, offering different workshops and things like that, this is a great program too. And of course, lots of sciences. Within science, we have about 50 different majors to choose from. So there's a lot of options. So students can definitely pursue that as well. Then this particular grouping of programs here is kind of more focused on students how we perform business, things like that. So we have our Faculty of Arts, which is very similar to, or often gets confused with the School of Art, but the Faculty of Arts houses all of your humanities and social sciences. So for students who are looking at that, you could study economics, history, psychology, many different areas here in the arts. We also have our business school, which is a really fantastic business school, very well known across the world. 13 different options to choose from there for majors as well. But just so you're aware, either. So you actually declare that only in second year. Then education is actually an after degree program at the UM. The reason for that is students basically study their teachables in the beginning degree, and then they study education to become a teacher afterwards. We also do offer law to international students. However, I do just want to note here that this is practicing Canadian law. So if you were to, let's say, study at the University of Manitoba Law, and then you wanted to move on back to your home, super well, some courses or some tests. So just keeping that in mind that you are studying Canadian law if you decide to study law here. And of course, we do have a really great social work program as well. Then this is a grouping that's more focused on our health sciences programs. So if you're looking at any of these programs, again, a lot of them unfortunately are not open to international students, as you can see with the maple leaves here. But some of them are open to international students. So the ones that don't have the maple leaf, interdisciplinary health and nursing are available to international students. So that's a really fantastic thing to share in case you're interested in more of the health sciences fields. There's still some options for you here. Then we have a very unique program, which you may or may not have heard about before. It is specific to the U of M, but it's called University One. So this is a really fantastic program. It allows you to kind of study more than one program at once. And it doesn't actually add any additional time or money to your degree program. Students that study in University One, they kind of take like an undeclared first year of study. Then in year two, they can transition to the Faculty of Arts or the Faculty of Science, or to without an application, or they apply to a different program of their choice and start in second year of that program, assuming they've taken the correct courses in year one. Now, this is a really great option for students. This is actually where I started. It's where a lot of our students start, majority of them actually. And there's different types of students that can study in this particular program. So as you see here kind of on top, it doesn't matter whether you start your year one in a direct entry program or in University One, you still end up going through the same pathway. So as I mentioned before, it doesn't add any extra time or money to the student's degree program. So you might be wondering, well, what kind of student would be in this particular program? If you're undecided about what it is that you want to study, maybe you're debating between a couple of different options, University One is great because you can take courses in all those different areas and really determine what's interesting to you. Also, it's filled with students who are very targeted in their study, and maybe they're applying for an advanced entry program, as I mentioned before. Some programs you can't apply directly into right from high school. So let's say something like nursing, you could take 1 year in University One, take all the courses you need for that particular program, then apply into year 2 in nursing. Another reason that a student may apply into University One is if they don't meet the admission requirements for their program of choice. So the admission requirements, I'm going to talk about that really soon, but they are more competitive for direct entry programs versus University One. So if a student, let's say, doesn't meet that admission average, they could then apply to our University One program, start there, and then try again for a second year in their program of choice. So now I wanted to talk about the application process and admission requirements. I know that's a lot of information to take in, but we have over 100 different programs, so lots of things to talk about. And of course, you can always visit our website for more information or connect with one of us on our team. So our applications have already opened. They opened October 1st. Now, I will make mention that the timeline that I'm going to be showing today is specifically for fall 2022 admission. Okay, so this timeline would change slightly if you're applying for a different intake. It's important, of course, to review your requirements, and you can apply online at umanitoba.ca/apply now. We have an early admission deadline of January 15th for the music application because they do have to do a theory test and a placement test. And an audition, sorry. Then in March, so March 1st is our direct entry application deadline. So for students who are wanting to start fall 2022, your deadline to apply for those programs that I've mentioned is March the 1st. Then we also have students, we want to make sure students are submitting their documents on time. So we'll get you to send in your required documents by May 1st and your final documents to submit them by July the 7th. Just be sure to submit all of those documents by the deadline to be considered for admission. Then we do actually have 3 flexible start dates for September, January, and March. As I mentioned, that timeline is specific to September. Not all programs offer the 3 different intakes. Again, you can find that information though on our website or ask one of us the specific question as well. So for general entrance requirements, just to the university in general, we require high school graduation with a minimum 5 full credits at the senior level. For transfer students, a minimum of 24 credit hours at a recognized post-secondary institution. And we have different program requirements different admission requirements by program area. So I will actually give you 2 examples of what that looks like. So as I talked about for our University One program, it's a little less competitive than our direct entry programs, the specific faculties. So for University One, we require an equivalent minimum of 70% over the following senior level courses with no less than 60% in each course. So that first course would be English or first language literature course, then mathematics, and a 3rd and 4th academic course. Now, a lot of times students wonder what's that 3rd or 4th course. As long as it's an academic course, we will consider it for admission. We would take your highest one. It just can't be something like gym. It has to be something like math or literature, things like that. So just keeping that in mind, but it's a 70% across those 4 courses there with no less than 60%. So that would be for University 1. Now I want to compare and contrast that with a direct entry program. So direct entry for engineering, an equivalent minimum of 85% over the following senior level courses with no less than 70% in each course. So for this particular program, we require English, pre-calculus mathematics, chemistry, and physics. So that is an equivalent minimum average of 85%. Depending on the students applying that year, sometimes that average can actually go up and be more competitive. So another thing to consider is if, let's say, you're a student and you're very close to that average or you're at that average, you could always apply to that direct entry program, but don't submit another application to University 1. You actually get automatically considered for University 1 if you wouldn't, let's say, meet a direct entry admission requirement. That said, though, if you know you're not at that 85, just applying directly to University 1 is a great idea. Then when you do apply to the University of Manitoba, we do have English proficiency requirements as well. So if you were to write a test at IELTS, we require a 6.5 minimum score with no less than a 6 in each of the 4 modules. For a TOEFL, we require an 86 minimum overall score and no less than 20 in each component. And then of course, we do have some waiver options. I will talk a little bit more about some of the new options for fall 2022 that we're very excited to offer. One of the waivers for English language proficiency this next year is going to be successful completion of the GCE A level with a minimum grade of B in English at the GCSE O level, AS level, or A level. And then we also have our completion of the ISSC, or the Indian School Certificate awarded by the Central Board of Secondary Education, or the Council for the Indian School Certificate with a minimum grade of 75 in the senior English subject. There are some other waiver options as well on our website, and maybe we can link some of those in our chat today as well. Then I wanted to touch quickly on our tuition and fees. So our tuition ranges by program, but anywhere from about $16,000 to $24,000 Canadian. And then books and student fees and supplies are a little bit more on top of that, staying kind of constant around $3,000. So your first, a year of university might cost you anywhere from just under $20,000 to 27,000 Canadian dollars for international students. Also, another thing that I think is a great follow-up to talking about finances is, of course, scholarship opportunities. So we do give away entrance scholarships to international students as well. Now, the one thing to really pay attention to for this particular information is students can only get an entrance scholarship if they start in the fall term. So fall, if you're starting for fall 2022. So it's only considered for an entire academic year. And then students also have to apply by the March 1st deadline and have a minimum average of an 85% over the best 5 courses from a pre-approved list. So you can see above the levels. So there's different levels. They start at $1,000, $2,000, and $3,000. This is not a scholarship that you apply for. It's something that you get considered for automatically as long as you're applying by March the 1st deadline date. Then I just wanted to wrap up here and leave you with some more information, different links and things that you can visit us at. We do actually have virtual campus tours happening quite often. If you want to check out more of our campus, someone to kind of guide you through that, we have a student who does that. You can visit that information at umanitoba.ca/campus tours. In recruitment, we've also been providing a lot of online information sessions from September through December. So we actually just wrapped those up, but they will be recorded on our website. The link is provided there. And coming soon, we will actually be providing a winter online information series, things like how to apply for university, all of that stuff. Then in February 2022, we will actually have another virtual open house. So you can always have that opportunity to meet with faculty members from different areas as well virtually. So that's all we have for you guys today. We will, of course, open it up with a Q&A, but if you are looking to connect with us, everywhere on social media, our handle is umanitoba, so you are welcome to follow us there. But otherwise, I guess what we'll do maybe is open it up for Q&A, and myself, Lindsay and Suditra will help answer some of those questions.
Thank you so much, Varna and Lindsay. That was a really, really wonderful, informative presentation. I'm so happy we have some really good time for Q&A. There are some of our agents here and some students and everyone here. And of course, I will request Nalini to coordinate the Q&A. So I jumped in a little bit because I'm having a little bit of an internet issue. So if you suddenly find that I have disappeared, it's something I'm not able to control. So I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of Mrs. Osman and all the Illume staff. This was a very, very wonderful session. So can I start with the first question? Okay, so this is about the University One program. And when you talk about a student who is undecided, then the program that a student will apply, will it have to be faculty specific, or he can just apply undecided? Because sometimes they don't know whether they want to go sciences way or they want to go engineering way. So how do we deal with students like this?
That's a great question. So when I said that it's kind of an undecided program, it's still a decision in the sense that you apply to University One. So when I shared that slide of all the specific faculties, University One is still considered a faculty. You just technically don't graduate from it. So as the name kind of suggests, University One, it's only 1 year in that particular program. So you can start there. Take, let's say you're interested in engineering, science, something else. You can take all of those different areas of study and then see what you're truly passionate about and apply into that program for second year. As I also mentioned, not to get super technical here, but you do actually automatically get to go into the Faculty of Arts or the Faculty of Science without an application. So you would just kind of move along to that particular program afterwards. But if let's say you were looking at doing engineering after doing University One, you would then need to apply to that particular program. But I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and you have to complete a whole year. You cannot do it like after first semester, am I right?
Yeah, so you would be in that program for a year.
Mm-hmm. So much. Nalini, can you start going through most of it? Suditra, I see, has already replied to it. So if there are any questions, Nalini, please coordinate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Suditra has been answering all the questions as they came in, and we can open up the session if people want to ask questions or either ways, it's fine. They can put it in the chat box, or you can show your raise your hand, and we will ask you to unmute and ask your questions. Either ways, it's fine. So the floor is now open for question and answers. Okay, let me ask a question that I received from a student. The student meets the requirements for engineering, but he also wants to do economics and statistics along with engineering. Is that a possibility?
That's a really great question. It's so faculty specific. So if, let's say, you really want to do engineering, you have engineering is very specific in its requirements. So you have kind of specific core courses you have to take to complete an engineering degree. But of course, every U of M degree does have something that we call electives. So those are like free option courses. Some faculties do offer, let's say, a minor in a different faculty. I'm not off the top of my head familiar if engineering would offer, let's say, a minor in mathematics or statistics, but that's not to say that you couldn't take courses in that particular area. Absolutely. Most degrees at the U of M do actually have something like 30 credit hours in electives, and that's like those free option courses, and 30 credit hours is an entire year. So it's a lot of in some of those other areas, like mathematics and statistics, you would definitely have the option to do that. But again, engineering is a little bit more specific, so you might have a little less electives to choose from specifically in that program.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Varna. The second question that I have from a student is, if a student is, falling short for a direct entry program into computer science, and he gets into University 1, is there any requirement to go into his chosen field of study?
Wow,
in the
these
second
questions
year?
are great. So yeah, there is technically. So if you were moving, as I mentioned, it's a kind of an automatic thing that you get to do from University 1 into the Faculty of Science. But usually students do need, I think, about a 2.0 GPA. I guess that would be a C, D, something like that. It's not super competitive, just so everybody has 2.0 scale. So 2.0 is not super competitive to then continue on in that particular program.
So while they are in the University 1 program, they are still able to take courses related to computer science, right?
100%. You would still be in exactly the same courses as if you applied direct entry to science. You're just technically not under that particular faculty for that 1 year. That's it. That's the only difference.
So that's the same with engineering and business as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We have Uzma Patel who's put her hand up. So Uzma, can you unmute yourself and ask a question?
Hi everyone, this is Fee's father on my wife's ID. Okay, we are stuck at a level where we need some help. We applied for, as I put it up in the post, we applied for September 2022 intake in the month of Jan 21, and we got a confirmation a few days prior to September where we could not. So we requested a deferral to Jan 22, and we have gone through the procedures. Now we have applied for the visa, and we are awaiting our biometrics on the 21st of December. My child is very anxious to join in on Jan 2022. What are the best options we can? We have also paid a registration fee in one of the residencies there. So we were just looking that she doesn't miss out a year of studies, and what are the best options like? Because she's registered for her courses also, and out of 4 registrations, I think 3 registrations are on campus, and 1 registration is on online. So is there something like a hybrid study where she can opt and she doesn't miss out a year, or maybe she joins in as soon as the visa comes in, or whatever? because this is something beyond our control. We have followed all the protocols and everything in place, and we are stuck at this level, ma'am. Can your team, and Nalini has been very kind enough to reply to my wife on a regular basis, though. But can anyone just let us know how do we go about, because we are in a position where something beyond our control. Kindly help us with this, please. Thank you.
So, Verna, can I suggest that this is a very specific case, so you cannot really discuss it on a public platform. So if they can write an email, maybe to Nalini, and she could use the reference of today's discussion and send it over to you, and then you can communicate directly with the parent. That would be a better option.
Okay, we'll do that, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think Sujitra has already shared the email ID with you. So if you
yes,
can just,
I have noted on the email ID.
Yeah, please
okay,
do write.
Copy to you, Nalini.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, team.
Yeah, there's a question from Meghal from GB. If student has not opted for math in grade 12, are there any options for them to apply for business program at the university, and what be the entry point?
So for business specifically, we do require a mathematics component. Sorry, if you just wouldn't mind, thanks. Perfect. You already did mute yourself. So yeah, we do require a mathematics component for that particular area of study. If you didn't meet that, you might be able to apply to university. What I think our direct entry stuff has changed now too. But if you're looking at math specifically, we do offer some courses for upgrading to kind of like high school level. Not sure if my colleagues can chime in. I know things have changed a little bit over the last year within regards to mathematics. Lindsay?
Yeah,
Thanks, Verna. Yeah.
So teacher, do you want to respond?
Sure. Okay,
Yeah,
I
thanks.
can. So with regard to the mathematics, unfortunately, it's actually become essential for students to have mathematics in order to be considered for admission to all of our undergraduate program. So when students don't have math in their senior level, they unfortunately will not be considered for a direct admission. There's a few options. You know, some of you might have heard about the International College of Manitoba. That's definitely is one option that student can consider, because we have a partnership agreement with the ICM. Or other than that, student will probably some way or the other have to fulfill that requirement for mathematics senior level. Our admission team can consider the combination of mathematics that outside of the mainstream, like, you know, the high school that students doing for admission consideration. But yeah, so just to make it short, without mathematics, they will not meet the admission criteria for our undergraduate.
Okay, I think there is a question from Swarupa. Since the programs are in person and students' visa is still in process, can they study online?
With that specific question, it's going to be completely dependent what courses are available online, but unfortunately, moving forward, earlier this week, it was announced from our administration that we will be returning to in-person classes. So with regards to the exceptions for students, that especially with any delays with visas, almost all of the courses, I think they are fully anticipating students returning in January. I would say case by case maybe of looking, but unfortunately with just a full return, and most of our courses are generally provided in person for students, we are looking at that start coming in the new year.
Okay. Kiran is asking, is open schooling accepted? Sujitra, you may be aware of that. Yeah,
For sure, yes. So with open schooling, is unfortunately it's not the norm or the standard that admission teams working with. So it's going to be more like case by case. The reason why I'm saying this is because generally speaking, the answer would probably be a no, but it's hard to say, you know, it really depends on circumstances and also the recognition and accreditation of that open schooling, you know, whether or not it's accepted by the government in the country or not, and whether or not student can actually submit an official proof of that. But generally speaking, I would say you probably want to err on the side of caution and say no to that rather. But if you want to try, I would say, yeah, maybe, like it's hard to say.
There's another student who has sent a message here. Is BSc Genetics available for international students?
So if it's an agent, we would highly recommend that, you know, you want to make sure that the application is simple, it's simplified, and that, you know, that our admission calls for, you know, high school CBSE and ISC's examination standard. So I would say it's probably best to stick to that. And all these open schooling, I would say maybe perhaps you might not want to consider working with that.
Okay. So is there any WhatsApp group or any other group on social media that I can join for Jan 22 intake? Fee Patel is asking this. Would we know of any group
so it's
that
not
the student can
necessarily
join
social media,
on
but
the
we have UN,
the students
which
group?
is basically
Yeah.
the on the University of Manitoba website. There is a website called UM Common, and that's where it gives a lot of support for incoming students. And they might potentially be a group that student can join through UM Common.
Okay. Yeah, I hope I haven't missed any question here. Okay, any other question from the group here? No questions? Any other question from our agent partners who are here?
So I just want to ask you one question, because Nalini, we do meet a lot of students who inquire about medicine. And I think in the portfolio of ILUM universities, we only have Manitoba and Saskatchewan where medicine is, I mean, you have med schools which are pretty, well known across the world. Students given to graduates from as an undergrad student, graduates from Manitoba, and gets good grades at the MCAT. What do we advise students?
Well, just to kind of reiterate, for medicine and a lot of our health sciences, they're not open to international students. So if the student that you're talking about right now, let's say in this scenario, was to obtain permanent residency, then they could then apply to something like our medicine program. So within medicine, we require a full degree beforehand. So if that student, let's say, did a full degree, they obtain their permanent residency, I believe, I'm not mistaken here, but I think we would give preference to Manitoba residents. And at that point, if the student was considered as a Manitoba resident, which they likely would be, completing their first degree with us, that would give them an edge then to get into that program. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, because we do get a lot of students who want to get into medicine. So just to advise rightly, we don't want to be giving any information.
Yeah, I guess just being upfront with the student that unfortunately that isn't actually a program that would be available to them as an international student. You do want to provide that transparency to them. But in addition to that, like if let's say they were to, qualify for permanent residency, then they could then apply to that program afterwards. So it might take a little bit more time, but certainly they could do their first degree with us in something like science and then apply for PR, hopefully get PR, and then apply for medicine.
So there's a question from somebody called Vishal Amare here about the study gap. And Lindsay has already replied that there are no restrictions to study gaps. Vishal, from the university perspective, yes, there is no restriction. But before you apply, please consider the visa part of it, because generally, if it's more than 4 years, the visa officer is not going to really give much of a weightage to your visa application. So I would say that if it is an undergrad program you're thinking of, then maybe max 2 years. And if it's a postgrad program you're thinking of, then up to 4 years. Beyond that, it will be a very, very tricky situation.
I have something to add to Verna's last comment about medicine, and maybe perhaps of interest to people here. Just want to kind of emphasize the fact that we offer tons of programs, and many of our programs, which may not be medicine specifically, but the kind of work that or the opportunity that student can get would be something that absolutely related to the area of healthcare. I'll give you an example. One of the research one of the research that we are known for is the research in the area of disease. And for example, Ebola virus, for example, right? The vaccine was actually not invented, but discovered and developed at the University of Manitoba. So what I'm trying to say here is that there's a lot of opportunities for students to work in the field of medicines, not necessarily having to be a doctor. You know, there's many aspects, and a lot of international students actually find success. And some of them work in the lab, you know, developing something that actually helping saving many lives in the world. So.
Yeah, just to reiterate, like Saditra's comment, I think that's such a good comment about kind of the lab experience that you do get. You might get that within sciences, but also again, if you I just want to throw it out there, the 2 programs that are open to international students in specifically health sciences as well is interdisciplinary health as well as nursing. So again, might not be specifically medicine, but again, students could apply to those programs. Just kind of wanted to add that into Saditra's comment that I thought was great.
And for those students who are aspiring to go to med schools, will they get trained while they are in their undergraduation in the area of doing their MCAT, preparing for their MCAT?
There are like study groups and stuff like that on campus, usually for MCATs and things like that. There's not like specific courses where they go through like MCAT prep. But that said, there are specific courses that you have to take to qualify for an MCAT, which of course we have all of those courses for the student. And then back when we were all on campus, I remember seeing posters everywhere of like MCAT prep, and then all the students would kind of have their little study sessions to prep for their MCAT. So I'm sure there would be opportunities and some students that would love to work together to kind of study that particular area.
Thank you so much. I don't think that
as well, Varna? Will you say the same thing applies to dentistry as well?
Sorry, for
the DAT exam? Same idea. Yeah.
Same. That's like what? Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
You got it.
I don't think there are any more questions. Is there any last minute question here from the audience? No more questions? Okay, Sita, should we just say the thank yous and close the session?
Yeah, we don't want to hold you longer because I know it's pretty early in the morning for you guys. So Nalini, please go ahead. I mean, I think everybody knows I can just tell everybody if you have questions, please send them to Nalini. Anything
I'm
comes
going
up,
to share
later.
my.
Yeah, and she will get the appropriate response from either Sujit. Do write to us, whether you're a
To
student or an
everybody.
agent, please do write to Nalini. Yeah, and I think there's an issue with my internet. So Nalini, can
Yeah,
you please
thank
take
you. Thank
over?
you so much to all our agent partners who have joined in spite of their busy schedules. I know there's lots of things happening and you've been able to take out time to be with us. So thank you so much. And thank you very much to our colleagues from University of Manitoba for joining us this early and putting up a wonderful presentation together. And have a great day ahead and see you all soon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you so much.